Or do you care to share with us who he might be voting for?
Dick Cheney will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Now, this, if you ask me, is the perfect post. Many of us feel like political vagrants these days. Who do you vote for? Who will represent your interests? Isn't it becoming increasingly clear that politicians like Kamala Harris, Keir Starmer in my country, Justin Trudeau in Canada, Macron in France, are essentially, Lula in Brazil, are globalists, WEF politicians, as I heard Dr. Robert Malone call them on our Awakened Wonder Locals Oracle special. You've got to see that. It's fantastic. You have centralist, bureaucrat, technocrat political leaders who plainly work against the people. I love this post by David Sachs. Kennedy Democrats are now Trump Republicans. Bush Republicans are now Harris Democrats. Kennedy, I suppose President Kennedy and RFK Sr., from the perspective of an outsider, were regarded as, they were called Camelot, and what Camelot means in our language over here in the UK was an utopian, Arcadian period where, whilst there were leaders, those leaders were somewhat divinely appointed. Now, I suppose if you scrutinise the Kennedy legacy, you might say there were mob connections via their father Joe. You might say that some of the promiscuity of the Kennedy brothers might not make the cut in this day and age. But when it came to ideals, when it came to the anti-deep state speeches, you will have seen JFK make some of those. When it came to Bobby Kennedy's position on matters of social justice, a lot of us still feel that those were two great men. If Kennedy Democrats are now Trump Republicans and Bush Republicans are now Harris Democrats, what world do we live in? Because Cheney has come out for Kamala Harris and Cheney has come out for Kamala Harris. So whichever one of the Cheneys you think is worst, it don't matter because they've both come out for Harris. You might not be a fan of Liz Cheney, for example, and I can't imagine that there's anyone in the world, other than perhaps Liz Cheney, who's a fan of Dick Cheney. A kind of bizarre cross between Darth Vader and J.R. Ewing, snarling under a 10-galleon hat. That kind of Halliburton Emperor Palpatine, that string puller of George W. Bush, that man for whom an oil field is a playground and a Kurdish kiddie merely an excuse to bomb an Iraqi one. So if Kamala Harris's campaign are welcoming endorsements from the Bushes who took us all to war on a lie, the lie that there were weapons of mass destruction, which caused millions of lives to be lost and probably contributed to the escalating conditions of incendiary tension and massacre that are being experienced across the Middle East even today, then doesn't that tell you exactly what the Kamala Harris government is all about? War, war, and more war. And all of it masked by cute, kooky little declarations about Starbucks cups being the wrong colour. Isn't it time that we all woke up? Isn't it time that we all woke up and smelled the Kamala coffee and stopped worrying about the colour of the lid and whether or not it clashed with our lipstick? Let's get into it. Is it true that the Kennedy Democrats are now Trump Republicans and Bush Republicans are now Harris Democrats? Let me know in the Rumble chat. Let me know in the Awaken Wonder chat. Let's have a look at these endorsements and why don't we diagnose together what they indicate?
Breaking news right now, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who played such a key role leaving Republican leadership over the Jan 6 insurrection, then helped chair the committee looking into it. She announced tonight she is voting for Kamala Harris. The Cheney name means a lot in Republican politics, and while she is associated as a critic who crossed paths with Donald Trump, she is a deeply conservative official, and she has said this matters for swing states and writing in names of protest candidates is not enough. She will be voting for Harris.
And why is that? What is the reason? Given that we appear to be on the precipice of several wars, given that by many people's reckonings even now America is contributing to needless, unnecessary and tragic death, what is the danger that Liz Cheney fears? And is she something of a chip off the old block when it comes to warmongery?
As a conservative, as someone who believes in and cares about the Constitution, I have thought deeply about this. And because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Okay, fair enough then, mate. Now, for me, as an outsider, I don't come from your country. I'm not in your country. I believe that we have some pretty serious issues to address that go beyond partisan politics. But chief among these issues is, of course, war, the military-industrial complex, the ongoing slaughter of people across the world, and my belief that it is the duty of your very powerful nation to use its considerable freight and might to stop war and death wherever possible. A simple statement like Donald Trump when talking about the Ukraine-Russia conflict, I'd like people to stop dying, seems to me to be of more value than vampiric endorsements from warmongers from across the aisle. Why, warmongers of every hue endorse the Kamala Harris centralist, globalist, totalitarian project. But remember, she's got some brilliant insights when it comes to lipstick on a coffee cup. Here's Liz Cheney some years ago expressing a different perspective on Kamala Harris. I mean, people change, but do the Cheneys change, baby?
As somebody who is a centrist, and in one fell swoop here, he has put somebody on the ticket whose voting record in the Senate is to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So I think that, the American people are going to look at the substance of this. They're going to look at what she stood for in the past. They're going to look at what she said during the primary election. And it's very clear. She is a radical liberal. She's somebody that has said we ought to spend $32 trillion on Medicare for all. If you look at her record as well in California, she did, in fact, essentially ban gun sales with executive action. And she threatened during the primaries to do the same thing if she's elected.
An endorsement from Dick Cheney is probably like a holiday with Jeffrey Epstein. Something you might look back on with some regret, even if you enjoyed it at the time. Here is Liz Cheney explaining that her dad, Dick Cheney, endorses Kamala Harris.
Dick Cheney, your father, a beloved figure among Democrats for many, many years. Do you, if you know who he will be supporting or who he'll be voting for, do you care to share with us who he might be voting for?
Dick Cheney will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Dick Cheney, remember all the dead Iraqi children? Woo! Yes, democracy, because Trump is so dangerous. Dick Cheney, he was great. How can we trust them on a single thing they say? How can we trust this media machine? How can we trust this war machine? How can we trust these marionette politicians, these placeholders, these ciphers, these agents of globalism who condemn nationalism not because they care about racism or because they care about diversity, but because they know that what nationalism and national sovereignty represents is a kind of firewall against globalism. Nationalism comes with many problems. Indeed, I believe in devolution down to the smallest possible unit. Individual freedom, community freedom, decentralization. But it doesn't take a genius to work out what agenda these people are working for. We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. What do you want? These are actually snacks that are available from Rumble. Rumble make these snacks, you see. This is a brand called Positive. It's a pet food brand that Rumble have. But also they have a pet insurance that is an affiliate to it. You know, like dogs can go from very high energy to being sick in an instant. And you know, it's like if you have to call a vet, like when they're out of hours. It's a terrible way to manage your dog's health. Not to mention it can be very stressful for you. So there's this emergency pet kit that you can get from Positive Health, which contains critical medications and supplies that can keep you out of vets and maybe even save your dog's life. So if you want to use it, go to Positive, that's spelled like P-A-W, positive.com/brand. That's Positive, P-A-W-S, itive.com/brand, and get your pet emergency kit that's got critical meds in it like activated charcoal and styptic powder, and you can get 15% off using the code BRAND today. Go to positive.com/brand and use the code BRAND to get 15% off. I like these Rumble connected organizations because they've been so supportive. Good boy. So supportive to our channel. It's great to give a little bit back. There it is. Here's Kamala Harris responding to the Cheney endorsement. She's just a member of the Cheney gang, baby.
Actually, I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that what they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important, to put country above party. And I'm honored to have their support, and I think it's an important statement right now. A lot of what I think is happening, and I was just talking with some folks here in Pittsburgh about it, is that people are exhausted about the division and the attempts to kind of divide us as Americans. And them stepping up to make this public statement, I think, is courageous, but also for people like the folks I was just talking with, it really reinforces for them that we love our country and we have more in common than what separates us.
Honored? Like, actually honored? It was like you'd begrudgingly accept it at best. Like Dennis Nielsen, or in your country, Jeffrey Dahmer, endorsing your cooking. He loved my casserole. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. What do you usually have in there? Here's how the Democrat Party and their elders used to describe Dick Cheney.
Vice President Cheney interpretation of the Vice President?
Vice President Cheney's been the most dangerous Vice President we've had probably in American history. He has the idea he doesn't realize that Article 1 of the Constitution defines the role of the Vice President of the United States. That's the executive branch. He works in the executive branch. He should understand that. Everyone should understand that. The only authority the Vice President has from a legislative standpoint is to vote. Only when there is a tie vote. He has no authority relative to the Congress. The idea he's part of the legislative branch is a bizarre notion invented by Cheney to aggrandize the power of a unitary executive, and look where it's gotten us. It has been very dangerous.
It's almost like they'll say absolutely anything as long as it appears to be the correct thing to say at that precise moment. Now, people change, people grow, people progress, but institutions also maintain power at any cost. And the flip-flopping, the duplicity, and the plain double-faced, double-speak stuff actually is the clearest indicator that we have that we can't rely on any of these institutionalized, systemized politicians. And even seeing like a young thrusting buck Joe Biden there shows you how far they've come from any principles they might once have had. We stand on the edge of war, and more war. This is a time where you, as an individual, could stand in the way of that war. I say this as a person that doesn't support Vladimir Putin, doesn't support any individual nation or people, but in fact believes in all of our collective right to a degree of freedom, to consensus, to self-government, to free speech, to good health, to not live under the continual yoke of corporatism and burgeoning, terrifying globalism. Here we have the peculiar spectacle of CNN trying to say that Dick Cheney's endorsement of Kamala is a good thing. Like, it's good that. It's better, in fact, than Bobby Kennedy endorsing Trump. Bobby Kennedy endorsing Trump means that we have an anti-establishment party. I'm aware of Trump's shortcomings. How could I not be? I've made videos condemning and criticizing Donald Trump. But what turned me is whatever you say about Donald Trump, one thing is clear from the lawfare, the warfare, the media campaigns and the condemnation. The establishment do not want that man in power. You add Bobby Kennedy into that mix on the subject of free speech, health, and significantly too, on the matter of war, which is our subject today, you have someone that is vocally against war. And I'm aware, because I can almost feel the comments, it's not perfect. It's not absolute peace. But, you know, the same way that people would vote for the Dems, they just say, hold your nose and vote for Kamala Harris or Keir Starmer or Justin Trudeau or Macron or whatever, because you have to stop the far right. I think at this point, you have to make this very same argument. Even if these movements are not ideal, they are opposition to something terrifying. And even with that caveat, it still has to go into the systems of bureaucracy and corruption and the permanent state and the deep state. And oh God, Lord alone knows where it will lead. But here is Dana Bash arguing that Dick Cheney is a better endorsement than Bobby Kennedy. That can't be true, can it?
I hear you about endorsements. We don't really know the impact that they have all the time. RFK Jr. hasn't been in elected office. Dick Cheney was Vice President of the United States for 8 years. He was a senior member of the House. He was Chief of Staff to Gerald Ford. He worked tirelessly to advance Republican policies for a long time. You don't think his endorsement of a Democrat with that kind of pedigree is going to make a difference with swing voters?
I really don't. I mean,
never Trump voters who weren't sure.
He was a good man, Dick. I remember now that war in Iraq was brilliant, and it went well, and it definitely didn't lead to the establishment of ISIS, fracture the region, and discredit the United States across the world in the eyes of many people, as well as annihilating the popularity of a man once much beloved in the UK, Tony Blair. The good thing about the Iraq War, aside from the dead Iraqi children, I suppose, and that was a bad thing, just to clarify, is that it revealed to us the nature of the state. It revealed to us that they will engineer circumstances and conditions that legitimize their authority and power. And how frequently has that understanding been relevant to you since? Create a crisis, create a response, legitimize authority, make a ton of money, and never admit it. That's why it's easy for years later for them to fling an arm around George W. Bush and say, he's like a lovely old uncle. He paints watercolors. And Dick Cheney, he's a nice guy too. Don't go hunting with that guy. His aim's not great. And if he shoots you, you will have to apologize. This shows you the degree of corruption that has taken hold, seized in a satanic gesture, I might say, the reins of power. And it's not just the power of your nation, it's the power of the world. That is why, difficult though it may be for some of you, and imperfect though it undoubtedly is, we have to oppose these forces of globalism. I'll give you the names again. Keir Starmer, Kamala Harris, Justin Trudeau, Macron, Lula. Anyone who wants to censor you and march onwards to war is not your friend. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. Remember to like and subscribe and consider becoming an awakened wonder. We are making glorious content, and through your input and your conscious awareness, we are making a difference. But that's just what I think, guys. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.